Good morning. How are you this morning? I hope everyone is doing well. Yeah, nowadays weather is kind of strange, and today is very cloudy and cold this morning. But during the daytime, it's like almost 80s, and then I heard a lot of also the cold patients came to hospital, and it's full of cold patient and COVID patient in the hospital. So it's like COVID is like cold, but cold is different because of the difference of the temperature between morning and night and day, and so I guess we have to be we need to be careful and not to be sick. So I hope you guys take care of it well. Today we're gonna talk about the today's the last day of the class, and then the last part of the early Christian thinkers. So we are talking about all the Christian thinkers, and if you think back and just pre-Socratic and Hellenistic and Romans, and then their philosophy, how it influenced on Christianity. So we are still dealing with the philosophical approach to understand the theology, God, and some of them take the philosophical position, and they follow the basic definition because they think that there is a way to reach out and Greek and Romans, and then sometimes even though they have good intention to help them to understand the Christianity, but still make the words of Greeks and the Romans confused about faith. So belief, right? Because the language is different. If we have two there is two group of the thinkers, and one is really followed the philosophical way, and another way is it's a philosophy is different from the belief, and that they totally stand on the Bible, so biblical ground. So that is a totally different approach, but some of them try to use a philosophical way, but still his position is really grounded on the Bible. So today we can see people who really have this philosophical approach, and then who really approached with basic Christian doctrines and faith. First of all, let's start off with Clement of Alexandria. Alexandria is like North Africa right now is in Tunisia, and Algeria, and this coastal area is there. But Alexandria is easy, I think it's Egypt, right? The coastal area, one of the city in Alexandria, and he is one of the first many Christian teachers in Alexandria, Egypt, and they're very close together, and then they traveled a lot. But Alexandria is one of the center of the Christianity. So if you study about the city of Alexandria in Egypt, and Alexandria is a chief center of Greek and Hellenistic Jewish culture. It means that there is a Jewish community influenced by the what? Greek and Hellenist philosophies, right? But they are Jewish, meaning that they adopted in the Greek cultures and Greek philosophies. So one of which is really prominent philosopher is Jewish, and then also Philo Judaeus in around BC 20 to 450. So he is a Jewish writer influenced by the Plato and Stoics, who kind of sought to reconcile what? The Philo reconciled what? The Jewish scripture to Greek philosophy by means of by the allegorical interpretation. So sometimes if you try compare in line by line and item by item, it's hard to do, reconcile both of them, right? That's why Philo takes what? Allegorical interpretation, not literal interpretation. Literal means that try to, there is I love you, mean then I love you, right? That's literally, oh, I love you, but I love you mean that another way that they are behind, try to think about the behind the meaning, and then, what it means, and then try to different, understanding and, interpretation. That's allegorical interpretation. So, for example, there was a logos not the Philo is logos as a semi-divine mediator between God and the world. So, mean that just think about logos, and then John described Jesus Christ as logos, and then Philo really to take in the way. I don't think so he doesn't know that he didn't accept Jesus Christ, but still, and there's a logos word, and then kind of mediate between God and the humankind. Human world, right? So he accommodated the creation story, creation story with Genesis 1 to Plato's Timaeus. So also Timaeus is kind of show that how the universe was formed and kind of express the orders and beauties. So. But Plato tried to show that the universe is a product of rational and purposive and beneficent agents. It's not just created by God. And Plato thinks that the universe is the handiwork of divine craftsman, like who is unchanging and eternal. So try to put them, explain to the universe in mathematical orders, and what is the pre-existence in very chaos, but still try to generate the orders of the universe. Still, there's a lot of question about it, because sometimes we try to understand like a Stoic, and then there's a natural law. It's governed by some universal law, right? But that's a kind of influence, right? And he tried to explain the creation story of Genesis 1 to the Plato's Timaeus. That's it's a kind of we can see how much he influenced by Greek philosophies and then Hellenistic philosophers, right? So the Alexandria is kind of a really prominent city at the time. Just remember that, right? And he had so his writing still survived, and then also Protrepicus is a kind of apologetics to pagan thinkers. So try to defend the Christian faith against the pagans, right? And Pedagogics and the instruction to Christians, on ethical matters. So just try to explain how to live as a Christians, right? And Stromata is a kind of miscellaneous collection of the teaching that is more philosophical and theological in nature. So even though he had a lot of writing, some of them practical, like Pedagogus, and but still he has a lot of philosophical and theological tendencies. So it means that he is one of the philosophers and then teachers and then he's a theologian. His view of the relationship between philosophy, and he tried to follow the ways of the Martin, Justin Martyr. And he said that philosophy support faith and clarify it and make it attractive. Maybe if you want to think deeper and deeper, try to find the logic, and I don't know, sometimes it's really hard, but just the way the philosophical thinking is kind of help maybe clarify and then make it attractive. Let's see. And basis of indispensable basis of philosophy. And he speaks here not only and just like just Martyr, he's not speaking of the Christian faith, but committed to rational thought. He's trying to understand the faith with the philosophical perspective, right? And because his belief is the philosophy, philosophy can help understand the faith. So he believes that philosophy is God's covenant with the Greeks, as the law was the covenant with the Jew. And there is it means that philosophical understanding of faith, and then it helps to Greeks to understand God. But a little bit different though. Just think about philosophy, and they are passionate about absolute being, and they are interested about physics. They are interested about the cosmos, and then the God's covenant with the Jewish is it's from God. It's not from human being, right? But he tried to find kind of how philosophical understanding is really important. Important for faith, right? And Clement believes that the philosophy leads to Christ. Can you see that? Maybe if you think about the metaphysics and think about ethics and think about epistemology, maybe the system of knowledge, how to know, but he believes that. So Christian, just think about Christian philosophy in the interest of Orthodox. Christians totally against the kind of position, but still he believes. And so the Clement who are very conservative Christians based on the tradition of understanding the faith, and then he mocked them. So he used like orthodox style, maybe we are orthodoxist, and that's kind of way that he called them. But if nowadays like this, and then think about it, and conservative Christians try to stick on the Bible teaching and what Bible said, but if you there's Christians who take a little bit of broad perspective and liberal perspective, and then sometimes they don't understand the Orthodox Christians, conservative Christians, right? So even though they don't believe Christianity, but still they don't understand and they criticize conservative Christians like that. So he's one of them. Okay, philosophy is really powerful to understand and help to understand the Christianity. And then just think about the Orthodox and the Christians who really believe in the Bible, and then no, it's not right. They said, but he mocked. All right. So when just mother and Clement prefers a rather impersonal vocabulary in speaking about God, and he said God is lameness. I don't know whether at that time he knows Hebrews, and then so he said you cannot properly speak of him. The closest way we can come to describe God is to say that he is being. So he didn't just murder and then try to have a philosophical approach of faith, and then for faith, and then just think about the same. So there is no God and just being, right? He followed the just martyr's way. But he thinks that human beings can know God by the way of the mystical experience. Sometimes it's hard to understand, right? He tried to follow the philosophical way and logic and reason and rations, but human being can know only by way of a mystical experience. So he is the first Christian thinker to bring mysticism into theological epistemology, right? That's it's hard to just think about what is a mystical experience. Who did that? Gnosticism. There is a secret knowledge, knowing God and go back to God, right? He also believes that the Logos is an intermediary between God and world, and it is subordinate to God. And then he's a little inferior than God, right? Under the God. So he regarded the Logos as identical with Christ. It means that to think about it, okay, Jesus Christ is begotten, meaning that all the way beginning and only God is there. There is no Jesus Christ. And then God create when begotten, and then God's there and the Spirit is there. So in the beginning, all the way, only God is there. So Jesus Christ is to think about subordinate to God, and then it's totally different from the Trinity concept of Trinity, and then what is it? One substance, but three persons, right? So one substance, By this one, God and Jesus Christ is not same. Like this, maybe Jesus Christ, who is a kind of a divine character, and physical character, it's a little bit different. So, he said, Logos, just models as Clement. Logos is also supermaticos, the means of divine revelation to the whole human race. What about, if you understand the way, what about Old Testament before Jesus Christ? How God had engaged with his people, and how God had revealed himself to his people in the Old Testament period. That's his understanding about Jesus Christ. So, he always agreed that just in the view of the free will, and then we have free will not to be seen, and we can, that's our own choice. So, he said that Adam was not created perfect, but was adapted to reception of the virtue. He's not perfect, but he adopted the reception of virtue. And so human beings do not know God by nature, but they are equipped to learn of God by their own effort. By virtue, right? Effort. Like, that's a basic concept. I can choose. Free will. So as did Adam, we have the capacity to obey God or to disobey. And God favors this, favors those who attain virtue. So virtue is really important, in terms of salvation. And so Clement's view of the sin and salvation has been described as a moralistic. It's not by faith, which is in belief in Jesus Christ. Because just think about it, how can we emphasize the grace? And it's totally different from the philosophical way. And his basic foundation is what? He tried to explain the Christianity in what? Philosophical approach. That's why. So it's a little bit different from the Orthodox and conservative Christian view of the salvation and the view of the sin. Right? And that's a Clement in Alexandria, and who is Origen? Origen is he's just a little bit later, and Clement is what? What is the year? 155 to 220, but Origen is a little bit later in 185 to 255. He's from he's born in Alexandria like Clement did, right? He is schooled by his Christian father and later studied philosophy with the Pleiades Anaminos, Saccas, and who also teach Plotinus. Who's a Plotinus? Who developed Neoplatonism, right? And he studied philosophy under him. And it was the Plotinus and then also Neo-Platonism influence to the Gnosticism, right? And so Origen wanted to join the martyrs. That's his wishes. Maybe we cannot understand why you want to die in this, for the sake of the name of Jesus Christ. But his mother doesn't like it, and that's why his father was willing to die for the Christ, and then his mother doesn't want it, and then he hid his clothes. As his father died, his father didn't do too. So actually, his father was a martyr, and he wants kind of take the same step of his father's. And but interesting thing is that Eusebius, just think about how he's devoted and committed to God, and then Eusebius is one of the historians, and the early church historian says that Origen castrated himself in literal obedience to Matthew 19:12. So he doesn't want to lose his focus in serving God and in serving Jesus Christ, and then he did. So he was a biblical scholar and apologist and then theologian. But he is best known for the supervising production of the hexapla, and then which is places 6 version of the scripture in parallel columns. So hexapla is probably just think about. There is a different version of the Bible. He kind of parallelized and compare how they say. That's why he's supervising production of that. And another he is really made in. He gave the big influence later, and his understanding of the Bible, interpreting the Bible. We said allegorical interpretation, and usually there is I don't know whether you guys take the hermeneutics class, and then we gotta, when you understand the Bible, what is the literal understanding, grammatical understanding, historical and cultural understanding, and context. Context, right? That is the basic things, but that is really emphasized in literal understanding in the human readings. But hermeneutics, his allegorical understanding is there is a kind of a physical and literal text is there. Like if you read the Bible and just the words in the beginning, in the John 1:1, and then just say it in literal meaning, but the psychical and moral meaning. So if you read and that one, another meaning is there. That's kind of you couldn't get the virtue and you couldn't get the moral lessons. psychical, and kind of emotional and stuff. And then, and another level is there, and then another level is there, and then kind of a pneumatic, and what? Speculative. Means that a little bit deeper, and then you can get another meaning of the Bible. So there is 3 steps of the three steps of understanding the Bible, and then his allegorical interpretation could make it teach wide variety of the speculative philosophical ideas, and that one is kind of really characterized in him, and but maybe I can talk about a little bit allegorical understanding, but maybe if you are interested, I'm not going to talk about that one, but basically he is kind of apologist and try to defend faith and his theology, and then Bible teachers. How can you teach the Bible? How can you develop the theology, study about God, right? And then he wrote the Contra Salem. So Sallust was a 2nd century plagiarist who wrote the True Word, and that one is kind of attacking that one is attacking on Christianity, but Origen kind of refute he refute point by point, and the point is Celsius group. That's maybe he tried to you are not right, and then maybe this is biblical in terms of biblical understanding, this, and then he tried, he refuted the Celsius. And another book is his first principle. I don't know, you guys remember in the Irenaeus work something described as a Christianity, so he developed the biblical versus theology. Biblical theology, and then you see the Bible as a whole in perspective, and then try to get the principle. It's not topical, and each chapter by chapter try to see connections and what is a big theme of the Bible, like understanding the Bible like this, and then but the Irenaeus like that, and he worked in kind of paved the way for the biblical theology, but Origen, his first principle is like systematic theology. Systematic theology like this: who is God, and then try to read the Bible, and then you can see the verses about describing about God, and then they pick them all put together and make principles, right? Topical, in each way to say. He did that, right? So he's really helped to how to understand the Bible. But if we wanna understand the Bible, we need both. We need both. Sometimes, and biblical theology gives a lot of kind of insight through the Bible, but sometimes it's hard to organize, because if you want to organize, there is a context is different, I know, but here and there, and then you get some idea and put together and understand the Bible and understand the theology, God, and then there's another word, right? Well, that's why we need both. And if you go to church, some pastors and okay, one pick at one verse and try to before and after and whole book and understand the text and preach the Bible, right? That's based on the biblical theology. But if you go, yeah, I can see a lot of pastors who had kind of a text and then try to get some idea about what, and then basically and read this, and then he get another Bible verse is prove what did it say and try to prove what God said, Bible said, and try to add more deeper knowledge like this, and that's a systematic theology. Organ said that there is 3 ways to understand God, and he kind of divided in kind of distinguishes the method, right? And first of all, there is a thesis. What's a thesis? And just thesis is coming to know God as the causal origin of the earthly reality. And just think about what happened. Try to question what is the origin of the problem, and then go back to God. That's a thesis, right? You can see a problem and go back and go back and go back, and that we cannot explain why God is there. That's one of the thesis. What is the analysis? Analysis is like denying God anything inappropriate, anything that suggests weak and materiality or evil kind of stuff. That's analysis, okay? Denying to God's anything inappropriate, all God's jealousy. God called his people like Joshua and Moses and killed all Canaan peoples like this. That's another analysis. Do you know terms a little bit different, and then Hegel may become a dialectic, and then his thesis like a synthesis. It's not exactly the same thesis, and then there is kind of against and opposed to the one is anti-thesis, and after that try to make kind of there's a companies there, and then try to develop another idea or put together make another idea. It's like thesis. That's Hegel's dialect, but Organ uses a little bit different terminology, but there is, right? And last one is analogy, determining the portion of the extent to which any attribute pertains to God, right? So eventually go back to God and then try to answer the questions, right? That one is 3 ways, and then 3 ways of understanding God, right? And I put some note about Thomas Aquinas in his theology in the Middle Ages, and then he used the same way. And Aquinas kind of synthesis in kind of equivalent in Aquinas was what? The causations. And then another one is kind of was analysis. He called the way of negation, kind of denial, right? And then analogy is kind of determining the portion of like coming back and the way of the eminence. If you know the history of the philosophy, there's a lot of influence there. So you have said like over he studied the philosophy and Stoicism, like also who was Clement, and study Platoism and study Stoicism, and then like this. And if you study, even though you don't follow the way exactly, but you can influence by them. You can some idea. You cannot deny why the influence totally, right? You cannot deny that. And so Oregon, his doctrine of God is like Philo, Justin, and Clement, who took the philosophical approach of understanding of God. So, and they said God is just being, but not just being. It is separate from the human being, but absolute, unchangeable, right? There is a God, and that's he went to take the philosophical approach to understand, explain the Christian faith. It's one of them too. He formulated the terminology used for Trinitarian distinction in Greek, and then Greek speaking, and then he separate who is God and who is the Son, who is a spirit, like this. And then he used a Greek word because one of the way that maybe he had the same not exact same, but similar tendency, similar position for the philosophy, the world of philosophy, right? And he understands that God is one ousia, and then three opponents, three hypostases, and hypostasis, and that is a God. So outside mean is being, right? What's generally accepted as a synonym with a Latin substantia. Substance is this is a Latin word, is the same as the ousia. And what about the substance and hypostasis, and distinguish what is Western word called in three person. Nowadays, hypostasis, and then we think that the three person, but Godhead, right? But the hypothesis and the problem resulted in Sabellianism. What is Sabellianism? God was one person who played several roles, and three gods. It's not one God. And they said, we believe the once Trinity, we say that one substance and three person of Godhead, right? But Sabellianism is not. He said there is God, one God, but had different three gods. So just think about it. Even though all Christians willing to accept both Greek and Latin terms as a conventional designation of the Trinity, but there is no problem. But when you think about the heresy, and then there is problems coming out. Even though, he tried to explain what the Trinity in Greek terms, and just think about the language is totally different, right? And that's a contextualization is very important. When you use this language, just think about it as a foreigner, right? When you learn English and then try to talk to them, but there's a lot of idioms. And if you don't know and you use it, what they are saying now, literal meaning is different from what they really mean. That's hard, like this. And then just think about there's a traditionally understanding about God, and then there's a terminology there. But if you translate to the other language, in big trouble. It's a big trouble, right? So we mean that if you want to really pay attention and without any consulting, and maybe it's kind of distort the meaning of the Bible in other cultures. So there is a mission agency, it's weekly, and they try to translate the Bible, right? And then long time ago, maybe it's about 20 years, but nowadays it's less than 10 years because of the technology, and still it's a lot of time, and that's why they are really give extra pay attention to translate to another language, and meaning is different there. So sometimes, even though we don't intend to twist or distort the meaning of the Bible, but still, when other people who grow with different education background and different culture background, and then take it different way, and that's why we gotta really be careful, right? That's he tried to formulate the terms of the Trinity in Greek speaking. So that is a problem. So another way is kind of Jesus Christ is living Lord and God. God is, and he said God is exists all the way beginning. And then Jesus Christ is begotten from the, in the beginning Jesus Christ not, and then later Jesus Christ begotten by God, and and existed. So, and Jesus Christ is the Lord and God, right? Even though he had divine characters. So it's not much different from other philosopher like Martyr and Clement, and Orwell is almost same as they basic understanding of the kind of approach to Christianity, to introduce Christianity to other country, right? And so creation of the world views being a little bit different. So think about, he said that the world been going on eternally. What about the Genesis? So maybe he understands the Genesis chapter 1, 2, the creation story, a little different. So God created what? Right? From nothing. And just think about, and God, and he said it, God could not create evil, and so He created all things ethically equal, ethically equal. And He tried to explain sin this way, and some of them fell into sin by their own free will. That's His choice. And that's a kind of basic father's libertarian view of the freedom, right? One of kind of the ones libertarianism in only it's not liberal and liberalism. Libertarianism is kind of it's one of the view about the humans. It's a philosophical position about human beings, understand human beings. That's the also related to the free will and free will and then determinism. They don't believe that determinism. Who had determinism? Stoic has fatalism and determinism, but they kind of ignore the determinism and then human has the free will. Still, there is a lot of debate though, and just kind of influence, and then we have a choice to do that, and that's the Arminianism, and later on Calvinism is that it's about in God's sovereignty, everything is predestined like this. Different understanding, right? And so Owen speculated that they most people who committed and people who committed sin, and they must have committed sin in previous life. What? Previous life. That's why. And so he embraced the doctrine of the pre-existence of the soul. I don't know. So soul is there's another life is there, and and maybe regenerate, reincarnate like Hinduism. He has idea like this. He tried to explain about sins, right? And that's why it's sometimes Bible didn't say anything about some issues, but we try to understand with our rationality, sometimes with the logic, and it's totally off. So he's really focused on maybe what's salvation redemption about. Yeah, he really focused on what's the moralism. He did not emphasize on Jesus atoning death of Jesus and why Jesus Christ dies on the cross, and rather than he emphasized a moral example. So, and he does not teach any clear doctrine of penal substitutions. Penal substitution is not Jesus Christ died for the sin. Why? God is holy, and then God is really God doesn't accept the people who have sinned, and He sent Jesus Christ, and then He atoned for the pay for the sin through Jesus Christ. Like this, as a penal substitution. Jesus Christ really to die, sacrifice for the redeeming from the sins, right? So that's his philosophy and theology, and now his theology a little bit different, and he's really so early father thinkers I already told you in the beginning, and they really emphasize on not that much, atonement, and still relate to the philosophy, and relate to philosophy, and then they try to explain more moralistic approach, right? And so his theology is like a synthesis between biblical thought and Platonism. So sometimes which one is kind of create different things, right? And understand a little bit different way. And then sometimes people are really confused. But Western philosophy, Western Christianity is a little bit different from this point of view, but still this thesis become extremely widespread in Eastern Christian world, Orthodox Church, right? We are influenced by the Western Christian world, and what's the eastern side, Persia, London, around this area. So really Eastern Orthodox and Orthodox, right? There's a big influence about Eastern Christianity, on the Eastern Christianity. What do you think? And I don't know whether you guys have faith and you have theology about really conservative theology or the liberal theology, and a little bit different, but what do you think the Oregon's kind of thought? But just think about nowadays, we have a totally different kind of environment. And nowadays, postmodernism, after modernism, and then they kind of deny of the reasons and logics, and then they try to follow what they want, what they feel, and then postmodernism, and then when they come to postmodernism, and then they are influenced by relativism and pluralism, and then we said there is no absolute truth, and that is the truth is what? Just do whatever you like, whatever you feel good. And if you understand the way, that this philosophical approach, understand the theology and Christianity with this philosophical approach, how can you understand Christianity? We cannot understand a lot of stuff like before, right? Like evil. And there's one of the, at that time, philosophical trend, kind of, some thinkers try to accept about the philosophical trend. There is a lot of things in Christianity too, and even though maybe if you read a lot of books and somehow it really seems a good book, but when you read the book critically with if you have any kind of position of theology, and then it's hard to understand. There's a lot of controversial issues. So when you write the book, and especially related to faith or theology, should the book reflect your theological point of view, right? And personally, I trained was a really reformed theological understanding, right? And basically I have the page, whole things, but I get involved in missions, and sometimes my theology cannot explain that, and somehow I accept the other point of view. It's not a some yeah, it's a little bit different point of view, but I said it nowadays, and maybe I was a reformist, but still I have my basic foundation on that, but still I become a kind of evangelist. No, evangelical theology. So really focus is a little bit different. Yeah. Another philosopher is Athanasius. He is like at the end of 3rd century to early, almost 4th centuries. And Athanasius is like, he's really, he had a different kind of name, connotation, like called Athanasius the Great. And sometimes Athanasius the confessor or among Coptic Christians, and then Athanasius the apostolic. So, do you know Coptic Christians? And then in Egypt, and then he's a lot of different, but his name is Athanasius, and then but there's a confessor or and what's it, the apostolic and whatever, and the gray, and but it's a different, but he's he was a kind of the father, Greek church father, in that his ministry kind of involved in Greek churches, right? And the 20th Pope, the Pope was Alexandria. So eventually he worked in Alexandria, right? And just think about Alexandria, the kind of the atmosphere of the scholarship, and they're heavily influenced by the Roman and Greek philosophies. So Athanasius was a Christian theologian, and he's a theologian, and he's a church father. He was Pope and chief dependable Trinitarianism, Trinity against the Arianism, and he is kind of he's one of the Christian leader, well-known Christian leader around the 4th centuries. And then, I don't know whether you guys heard about Arius and Arianism. Arius believed that the Son of God was not God in the highest sense, when it's not Jesus Christ not saying it's God, the Father, but he fully God. Meaning that he's not a God. Like he he think about Jesus Christ semi divine, right? Semi divine. He believed that the world was a creature, not the ultimate creator like God. He means that he said that Jesus Christ is the Word, right? And but he believed that the Word, he accepted John chapter 1 early. He involved in creations, and then but still he's not a God, like God Father. He thought that God and created the world as a means of creating the material world. Meaning that, just think about organs, and then there is a consider the Arius, and then kind of influence about the Gnosticism and Platonism. they understand so like this way. So Arius also the first to clearly state that the world and the spirits were the creature of God more than the being only God. God created spirit and God created the Son, Jesus Christ. And he denied the word and the Father was the homoousios. Homoousios means that there's a be one substance. He denied it. Meaning that just think about it, God created the spirit and the word in Jesus. That's why Jesus Christ, is not the same as God. So if you read the John, book of John, Gospel of John, and then Jesus really emphasized he's the one, he's the with God. But these kind of ideas, that's who follow, and then later on the Arius kind of Arius, who followed the Arius and Arius, and then they said they went far, extremely went far, and they said Jesus Christ is from God. So they so like a Nicene around and the council of Nicene and rejected Ariusism and upon the God is Jesus. One son was the homoousios, and the same substance, but three persons of Godhead. That's confirmed, and later on there was a Council of Constantinople, and there was, and there's a kind of revised and then accepted, right? So basically, there is kind of Arius had a wrong concept, but if you know that how influential of the Neoplatonism, right, and influence of the people and philosophers, and I think at the time philosophy is really powerful, and even though Christians try to explain, I think that there is a wonderful way to reach out to them, but they still a little bit make a different point of view and then teach the people. And Athanasius, around he's attended the council to the Nicene, and then assistant to Alexandria, Bishop of Alexandria, and then he spoke on the occasion to oppose Arian's positions, right? And so he's really a great church leader at the time, around the 4th century and 4th centuries. And here's some example of how he disputed Arianism, and then Arianism encouraged worship of creatures. He said that Christ is the creature. Christians have a long worship Christ as God, but Arianism is they don't believe that Jesus Christ is God, the Father, same, right? And so if Arianism was true, Christian, to think about Christian, either would have to abandon their worship of Jesus, or would they have to confess the sin of idolatry? Idolatry, right? That is his kind of repute. And then Arianism teaches that our salvation depends on the creature rather than the wholly on God. Creature what? Jesus Christ. That is one of his refuted Arianism. And like Irenaeus and Athanasius focus on the biblical rather than the philosophical terms, and just Irenaeus really, Tertullianism really kind of attacking the was a philosophical approach, right? And really have a great, was a strong, foundation on the Bible. Athanasius really focused on the Bible, and then try to avoid like subordinationalism. It means that in the representation of the Trinity, it means that just Jesus Christ and there's one substance and same Godhead, right? The persons of the Godhead, try to develop and avoid subordinationalism is that Jesus Christ the Lord and God Father. And he really put a strong emphasis on the directness of God's relationship to the world. It's not the semi-divine. Jesus Christ, God, is the same as God the Father. That's why it's not a God is kind of it's not just a way to engage to kind of mediator like a semi-divine. No way. And his point of view, okay, God directly engage with the human beings to the world, right? And Athanasius also believed that free will of kind of type, and but look at this for salvation. He had more to do with Jesus' incarnation than his blood atonement. That's one of the trends at that time. So he really doesn't emphasize on the Jesus Christ's sacrificial atonement, but Jesus saved us by what? Taking human being flesh to himself, so that human being may be deified, however that is understood, right? And we can become a God. And so he's really emphasized, maybe Son of God become one man so that we may become God. And that's kind of logic is there, and then, but penal substitution is not there, right? Not emphasis there. So we can see how try to defend as a Christian faith from the Arius, and then how try to kind of understand what is the truth of the Trinity, right? That's why he is a genuine reformer, and then value and depend on the truth of Christ. And Jesus Christ is not subordinate to God. He has same, right? Substance. This last one is really influential throughout the history, and maybe you heard a lot of him. It's Augustine and Saint Augustine, like 354 to 430, and he has a lot of story about his life. I don't know whether you guys heard of the story, and he's kind of he's really frugal, and then he's like he lost in the early, so her mother is really devout Catholic Christian, and then Monica, his mother, prayed a lot for him, And that's if you read and then other things, and there is kind of anecdote about the Saint Augustine. He was born like here. Nowadays it's Sok Ahuras, Sok Aras, and then Dagest in Algeria. This is Algeria, and then it's like next to the Tunisia, Tunisia, and next to Tunisia, and then Tunisia, and then his father was pagan, and the mother was really devout Christians. So he went to a cult party. So what is a cult party? So at the time, it's kind of around. It's a cult party. It's a really capital city of the Asian Caucasian civilization, and that was really important because of there is a Caucasian of the trade. And look at this, this is Tunisia, and there is a Caucasian developed kind of big cities, and depends on look at this Mediterranean cities, and then depending the time period, and then coastal cities kind of develop, right? But Qatar is kind of and Augustine is kind of in Tunisia, and then it's a really big city. So he went to Qatar at the age of 17 to study rhetoric. How can you speak eloquently? How can you speak persuasively and logically, right? And he left the church to embrace Manichaean religion. So Manichaean religion we'll consider later. And once he left the church, but later on, look at this, and then he consummated his work. All the church fathers bring their best insight into the comprehensive system. So he influenced a lot and other, but he analyzed and synthesized, and then gave them influence to generation in history. Still nowadays. So still we try to study about him and our really basic kind of conservative theology is kind of based on his theology. So look at this, and very influential around 1650 on Christian philosophy thought in the West. So he formed kind of a basic frame of the philosophy, Christian philosophy in the West, and theology as well. So later on, he rejected the Manichaeism, and then embraced the first skepticism of the new academy, and then Platonism. He jumped into Manichaeism, and later on he influenced by the skepticism of the new academy. Then they are who followed Plato's study, and then they doubted all the stuff except the absolute being, and then Neoplatonism, Plotinus, right? He formed Platonism. Later on, he is influenced by the Ambrose. Ambrose is a Christian bishop of Milan, and at the time he's really influential on him. And then Bruce Ambrose is fiercely promoting the Latin Church against Arianism and what? Paganism. Right? Yeah, it's really, that's why he is, think about the paganism and think about the Arianism and another deeper understanding of Jesus Christ. And came to the kind of point of decision, and he says that he was in the garden of his house when he heard children singing "Tolle lege, tolle lege," and then take and read and what? He picked up the Bible and he kind of eyes back on the Roman 13 and 14. So that's kind of his turning point, and he around 387 he was baptized by Ambrosius and then become a priest at 391 and then bishop of the Hippo and 396. And let me read. Romans 13 and 14. Like that. Let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies, drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in quarreling and jealousy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify each desire. So maybe her mother's influence, and then he kind of had or maybe and dreams and all the world stuff, and he read this verse, and then that was made him turning to God. He got involved in Manichaeism. What is Manichaeism? Manichaeism taught that the universe consists of what? Two worlds. One is about kind of dyadic kind of understanding, and there's a spirit and flesh, and we're against each other like a light and darkness and good and evil. Right, dyadic worldview. And at the time, August followed the hedonistic lifestyle. He wanna enjoy the lifestyle. That's why when we heard kind of a voice, and then he read this Bible, Romans 13 to 14, and then he think about his lifestyle. But he was thinking about, but then where does evil come from? Try to understand then good and bad, right? Evil and good. And then he thought about where does the evil come from? If God is all good, he must have the desire to prevent evil. That is the thought. And then if he is omnipotent, he knows everything. Omnipotent, he knows everything, and he can do everything. Sorry, omnipotent, and he can do everything, and he must have a power. But still there's evil. How can explain? How can explain the fact? If we don't agree with the Manichaeism, the power equal opposite of the God of evil and good, right? The good. How can we explain? Those are big things. But still, the dyadic worldview is kind of, we have. Always we try to explain and good and bad, and flesh, and if we read the Bible, that is one of the first worldview in the Bible. It's a Christian worldview. What's a fight with our flesh, with the spirit. And eventually, spirit will not win, overcome the evil. He believed that the evil is a form of non-being. There is no exist. Non-being. And then maybe spirit we cannot see. It's not one of the things that God made. Evil is not that God made. Right? Because God said that everything He made was good. So where's it come from? How can we explain the evil? And look at this, and the being kind of incorporate non-being as a kind of and non-being sometimes incorporate the being like a donuts, and then he said sometimes non-being it is the where being ought to be. There's kind of cooperate. But he's explaining non-being become what Augustine called what? Privation, lack something. That's evil. So privation is kind of it's evil is not like evil is what insubstantial, so that something is as entity is misleading, and instead evil is rather than absence, lack. That is evil, lack of good, absence of good. That's the privation. That's try to explain the evil. By the Augustine. That's why he overcome the many kids. There's two dyadic worldview. That's a kind of philosophical, right? So the worst kind of evil is moral privation. The original art is moral privation. The sin of the angel and man, and that is kind of when you explain the evil, how the Christianity explained the evil. God doesn't create evil like Augustine, right? From Augustine, and then what? They challenge the God. Once become their spirit, not the non-being, like the their spirit, and they challenge the God, right? And punish and expelled from the God. That's evil. They are against the world. But his experience kind of a moral privation is kind of lack of morals. He said, and God, like, he's not like Oregon, and he made Adam good, but out of excessive self-love and by his own free will, he disobeyed God. That's still free will is kind of there. right? And what about how can you understand the evil? That's the kind of, in the beginning, he created by God good. But the fall makes it clear that the evil essentially was moral, not metaphysical. Moral means that kind of break some laws, right? And it's not virtue, right? And evil is not aspect of God's good creation. It is personal rebellion against God's command. If you read chapter 3 in Genesis, you can see that one. What is what's the covenant with God? Maybe. Okay, you can eat, you can have everything, but don't touch in the middle of the what? The tree in the middle of the garden. That's a basic covenant, between man, Adam and God. But they break the covenant and follow their own desires. That's the nature of the evil of the world, God's curse on mankind for the rebellion. So he believed that the sin, is kind of influenced and on the descendant of Adam. So human originally had simple. So that sometimes it's a hard understanding about in his creation, God, but he said God's sovereignty. God's sovereignty. And God is the Lord. God is the Lord, and it's up to Him. And He's planning. His creation, and He runs His creation by His sovereignty and His providence. But that's a good, but there is privations, challenging from, and lack of things, and then that's evil. That is a basic understanding of explained that there was Manichaeism that he got involved once, and then he's not he changed his point of view, and he explained that there was evil and there was good, right? What about the epistemology? And he eventually influenced by even though he influenced by what the the skepticism of academia, right? But still he get out of the perspective, and Augustine, he said that we can never doubt that we are doubting. We can never think that we are not thinking. Still, human being is thinking, we can know, and we have that kind of ability though. And he said that, human beings originally have kind of that mind in human being, and kind of inborn, and then being supposed to learn the truth. Truth is by nature imperishable, right? Immutable and eternal. There's a divine, there's a there, and then we gotta learn first. That's what is said, and then so if you learn, and then what's the soul, human being cannot be deceived as to its own existence, and then God and his soul existed, and the truth existed in both. That's why you gotta learn. And there's God is there. Human soul, we read it, and truth is there, that we can acknowledge that. So he said that learning is possibly only because the human being already possesses some truth. It's like a play with influence, and then we know the truth is there, but as the rest of the Augustine, and we had already possessed, and then we don't know about that one. That's why we gotta learn, and then it could enlighten. So the most important truth, the universal and general concept are in human mind, in the mind already existed. If you learn it, you acknowledge it, right? Then where these truths come from? He said these truths are located first in all in mind of God, right? It's from God. When we are created, and then we already have that one. That's his understanding. What about the Trinity? And Trinity, Augustine believed that the doctrine of the Trinity is not directly accessible to human reason. It's hard to understand that. It's beyond our reason, but there is a lot of approach to explain, but still, it's not easy though. He said that if you understand that God's depends on God's revelation to us. And it's really hard, that's why some like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, and they don't believe the Trinity. It's like their position is a little bit different from, even though they believe that Jesus Christ is Messiah, but the Trinity, understanding of Trinity is a little bit different from conservative. Like they have like this, subordinate reason. And it's kind of it's the same as like, the one substance and then persons of a Godhead. That's like this. He said God is an existential and essence, and then but only the essence is they have necessary properties, and then this shows and doctrine of the Trinity, and then Father, begotten Son, and necessary act, and to save but there is one essence, right? But different properties, different roles. What about the he kind of fought against the Pelagianism. Pelagianism is kind of he's a British monk who like he upheld by the moral state of the people of Rome, and then he basically he teaches the free moral effort by free their through their moral effort and what they could improve their life, and there is no what's the original sins, and there is no effect of the Adam's fall. And totally humanistic, right? And it means that without God, we couldn't have a better life. And that's why, if you think about what are the people who are persecuted, and Augustine argued that the original sin was a reality. It's not they don't, so no, that's the truth. It's not maybe our free will make our life better because that is independent from God. The free will is independent, but he denies that. And the sin of Adam had corrupted in his descendant, so that descendant had no hope of redemption apart from the work of Christ on the behalf, right? That's a basic idea about what we have nowadays. There is no hope except in Jesus Christ. That is his understanding. So he refuted the Pelagianism. Okay, that's a brief, that is an explanation. Another his big things that were developed a strong doctrine of grace, and other thinkers and Christian philosophers really focus on the incarnation, but he's really developed the doctrine of the grace. What's grace? And then saved by his grace. It's given from God. But free no substitution, right? The theory is there. And try to explain the kingdom of God, and he explained that there is Christians kind of misunderstood by the Romans that they served another emperor and king, right? And then the city of God, and he explained that there is two kingdoms. One city is a heavenly city, one is an earthly city. So Christians are thinking about heavenly cities. And here is how it's different in heavenly cities. And two cities have been formed by two laws. Earthly by the love of self, even to the contempt of God. Contempt of God. The heavenly by the love, heavenly city by the love of God, even to the contempt of self. The earthly city and glorified itself, but heavenly city in the Lord, glorified in the Lord. That's it's a totally, and for the earthly city, and man is kind of glory, it's a kind of sees glory from man, but the heavenly city, grace, glory of the others is God, from God. There's totally different city, and try to defend the Christians, what they believe. Right? But eventually, there is kind of we can see kind of a Manichaean dyadic kind of a worldview, but still, he said ultimately the two cities are headed to different directions. earthly city and heavenly city. One is to cultivate God's blessing, so live in kingdom of God forever. But another one is eternal condemnation, because they don't accept God, they don't acknowledge God. That's the city of God. He wrote. What about another one is the confession. This book is about reflection about his personal life. And one of the purposes here is that to seek, understand God's role in kind of pre-conversion life and eventually turn to Christ. It kind of shows his how, reflecting his life and how previous life, and then how he turned to Christ. That's confessions. So, just think about it. It's not just he passed into the exam of morality, and then it's really other, like alternatives, and then other Christian thinkers, and he accounted God's sovereign in his creation, and that's the one. And just if you have time and try to read, and then I think that there are different versions are available. Maybe he can know how he lives a life, and then what he tries to find, and how can he turn to God, and how he changed, how he find himself, how he find himself in God. So that's confession. So that's a basic idea about the Augustine. That it's a kind of basic, essential idea about him and how influential on Christianity. So if you haven't, there's a lot of resources out there, and still people are studying about him, his philosophy, and his theology. So let's say open to you guys, and then if you want, then you can study more about it. That's this class, and then the Christian thought and classical philosophy, and how influence and how they kind of try to find themselves in those influence, right, and challenges. So maybe you have time to reflect what was a big challenge now to Christians. What about the philosophical trend? What about cultural trend challenging Christians? But not just find the resolutions like temporary, but I hope that really you have time to dig in and find answer from more deeper level, right? And you can explain why, and maybe you can get some idea from the previous scholars and theologians and philosophers. And I hope that kind of you understand what was going on in the early church, and then what's the basic issues at the time, and how they defined it, right? And how they developed it. So think about it, a lot of similar Marcionism and Gnosticism and monotheism and also Pelagianism and Manichaeism. It's a lot of different Sabellianism and a lot of different understanding about Jesus Christ and about God, and they tried how to approach understanding the Christian faith and how to introduce the Christian faith to others, right? Different ways, there's kind of mixed it, and it was still developing, and then someone is take the philosophical position, and others already take the biblical position. And yeah, we can see, yeah, we saw it a little bit, but I hope that you understand how Christianity is formed. I mean the basic, was really important doctrines, and then I hope that this class help you to kind of evaluate current philosophical and cultural trend and people's mind, and then how can you explain, how can you deal with them and as a Christians. All right, that's it. I hope it's helpful you guys, and maybe if you are interested more and are willing to read it together and talk together, right? And I hope that you guys and kind of have another idea to challenge it to know more. Okay, God bless you, and I pray that you had a really successful year, and then move on to next level in your life. God bless you.